Welcome to the Inspiration Contagion podcast, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each episode spotlights and interviews one transformational leader, their stories, and their advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. If you are a visionary seeking to uplevel your leadership skills, then this is the podcast for you. I invite you today to spread inspiration like a contagion. Welcome to the Inspiration Contagion movement. All right, welcome to episode 19 of the Inspiration Contagion podcast. Today's episode is also being recorded for YouTube, so if you prefer to view this episode, be sure to visit the show notes for the link for the video. Today's guest is Joe Polish. Joe is the founder of Genius Network, one of the highest level groups in the world for entrepreneurs. He curates the annual Genius Network event, Genius Network and GeniusX, all three groups being home to some of the most successful entrepreneurs alive. And he is considered one of the most influential connectors in the world. Joe has also helped build thousands of businesses and generated hundreds of millions of dollars for his clients. He has been featured in Inc., Fortune, Forbes, Success, U.S. News, and World Report, among others. And he has spoken at Stanford University. Joe also hosts 3 of the top-ranked marketing and business podcasts on iTunes, including I Love Marketing, 10X Talk, and Genius Network. He has also changed the lives of many others through his charitable causes, including the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Artists for Addicts, Genius Recovery, JoeVolunteer.com, as well as being the single largest contributor to Sir Richard Branson's charity Virgin Unite. His documentary, Connected, The Joe Polish Story, premiered at the historic TCL Chinese Theater, and his documentary, Black Star, won the Audience Choice Award at the Sedona Film Festival. Joe's mission with entrepreneurs and Genius Network is to build a better entrepreneur. And his mission with Genius Recovery is to change the global conversation of how people view and treat addicts with compassion instead of judgment, and to find the best forms of treatment that has efficacy and to share those with the world. So with that, welcome, Joe. It's so great to have you.
Great to be here, Holly. Thank you. I appreciate it. And that's funny when I hear my bio, because unlike many people, they write their own bio. I never wrote that. That was actually written by maybe a team of my, team members, and maybe I have no idea. It's kind of funny just listening to it, wondering how that whole thing was pieced together over the years. But I sound like a capable person. So hopefully I live up to that.
I love that. You definitely sound very capable, and that is quite the introduction. So with that, why don't you tell us your version of your bio and your background, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I just help entrepreneurs, like you mentioned. I try to help build a better entrepreneur, and what that means is not just with money, making money, but actually having, a life that you enjoy. One of the things we focus on in Genius Network, which is my group, it's health, wealth, and elf. So health, mental and physical, not, because I believe, there's this great proverb, which is he or she who has their health has 1,000 dreams. He or she who does not have their health has only one. So the reason we're able to build businesses, and, me and you are sitting here doing a podcast right now, is because we're not laid up in a hospital bed. So, your health is by far the most important thing. Not just physical, but mental. And right now, prior to us starting to record, we had a brief conversation about it. We're on the cusp of the greatest mental health crisis in human history. So there's so many people that are, struggling right now, having such a hard time, and everyone's been thrown out of their comfort zones. Humans are creatures of habit. So, there's what's the Mike Tyson quote? Everyone has a plan B until I punch him in the face, or whatever it is. And so everyone's had their own version of a different punch in the face. And so how do you handle that? So health, mental, physical, wealth, not just making money, but not losing it and managing it. And then elf. I try to put everything into the category of easy, lucrative, and fun. So you can have an elf business versus a half business, which is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. And if it's a personal thing, it's easy, liberating, and fun. So over all these years, I have really focused on that. So I help entrepreneurs in the area of marketing, and I sell people what they want and try to give them what they need. What they usually want is more money, better clients, build a message, have a best-selling book, that sort of stuff. But what they really need is to not be so screwed up and try to have a life that actually works for them and that they feel really aligned and connected with. And so if there was one word to summarize everything I try to do, it's connection. Because as Johan Hari says, this great line, the opposite of addiction is connection, or the opposite of a connection is addiction, right? And so I try to connect people. And I grew up as a very disconnected person myself. So I'm not doing this because I'm some sort of wonderful human that just wants to bestow things on people. It's, I'm a convert of my own system. I was a dead broke carpet cleaner in my first business, and I learned marketing because I needed to eat, I needed to survive, and I just fell in love with it and started teaching other business owners. And over the years, I have helped many, many companies. And along the way, I started using my marketing skills to help the addiction recovery world, because I myself am an addict, and I spent many, many years in a lot of angst. I was a drug addict early on in my life, and then later in life, behavior addict, and I'm happy to talk about any of that stuff. But yeah, so I'm just a guy who figured out a few recipes, and now I do my best to connect people and do that. So it's cool. It's a cool business, and I have a good life. So I'm happy about it.
I love the health, wealth, and elf. At first, I thought you were going to say elf was kind of like magical, which I mean, easy, lucrative, and fun is magical when it's working, right?
Right.
But I agree. My tagline is health, clarity, business, because if you don't have your health, you don't have the energy or the clarity to build anything that's going to work. So I completely agree. And
Yeah.
since you just shared that we're on this major pivot or shift towards a major mental health breakdown, what are some of your tips, especially for people, since you're a previous addict and you struggled with that? What are some tips for them to, get through this really difficult season, since we've all been punched in the face a few times recently?
Yeah, there's different areas where someone's going to have different struggles. So I don't know if there was one thing that would apply to everyone. I have a friend who I was doing an interview with him, and we're having this conversation about how do you read all the books that you read? Because I'm one of these people that I'll read 20 books at a time, and I have eyes for opportunity way better than my ability to digest and even get through a tiny percentage of all the stuff I think that I could take on. So I'm one of these very driven entrepreneurs that is intoxicated by opportunities, right? And thank God I've done a lot of recovery work, because I can see workaholism is the respectable addiction, right? And so the tips and suggestions I would say is to ask yourself the question, what needs solved? So if it's a health issue, how do you solve one problem that solves 10 problems, that solves 20 problems, that solves 50 problems? So for instance, a lot of people may have a lot of problems in their life, and if they just solved one thing, like get better sleep, 10 or 20 or 30 or maybe 100 of those other problems would disappear. So I try to go after, don't treat the fruit, treat the root. And so what's the root cause for your stress, for your angst, for your disconnection? And a lot of times that is just simply stepping away from the screen. Right now you have people that aren't going outside as much. You have people that are isolated and lonely. And, one thing for me, most of my family is passed away. I lost both my parents. My mother died when I was 4 years old, and my father died in 2002. And I don't have a lot of close family. And I don't have children, and I'm not married, and I'm single right now. And it's very interesting because it's very isolating. So the question is, being alone versus feeling utterly alone and feeling, disconnected. And I'm known as the connection guy. So I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of relationships, but we're not able to, right now at this current stage that we're, doing this podcast, it's a very weird sort of world. And it's only been a few months where anyone's ever had to live like this. And God knows how long this is going to go on. So all of the practices that allow you to feel connected, more than ever, be super diligent with them, with meditation, with breathing, with sleeping, with exercise, with movement, with nature, with sunshine, to whatever degree. Most of those things cost nothing. And there's so much you can do intellectually. I mean, obviously there's great things to watch, there's great things to listen to, there's great things to read, but human conversations, if you can't be in person, get to as close to it in person as humanly possible. And remember, the issues are in the tissues. And so all of the things that cause us to feel really angsty and lonely and sad and depressed, look for ways that expand you, not contract you. Right now, depression is through the roof. Suicide, divorces, spousal abuse, child abuse, animal neglect, vices of every kind, in the middle of wars, recession, and certainly a pandemic. All of the ways that humans can look for ways to scratch the itch of being lonely or depressed or fearful or angry. I think addiction is a solution. I don't believe in a war on drugs. It's the wrong war. It's like a war on addicts. Drugs are actually the solution. They're not a very good solution, but they work temporarily. And like my friend Gabor Mate says, the question's not why the addiction, but why the pain. And so when the world is in a tremendous amount of pain, how do you get out of it? And you can't fix the world with broken hands. So my thing would be like, okay, if you're hurting, what are some of the options that you can do? And so I mean, none of this is going to be anything profound. Gratitude journals, breathing, getting enough sleep, staying away from screens, all those little things. And I honestly would make a list of, if someone hasn't done it recently, make a list of, the top 10 or 20 people in your life that you really care about and care about you, and just stay connected with them. Just reach out to them on a regular basis, even today. Tell them you love them, tell them you care about them. If you need help, ask for it. Fighting silent battles are the hardest battles to fight, and when people try to fight silent battles, their lives don't work, and it's very hard. And so it's more than ever, be able to reach out and help others.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I think that connection is so important right now because I have some of my friends who are, like you just said, single at this crazy time. It's really hard to shelter in place and survive this crazy time in life alone. But it's like you said, it's really important to remember you're not alone. You can connect in other ways, and you just have to get really creative with that, whether it's a socially distanced hike or having a conversation on Zoom or FaceTime. And like you said, staying connected to those top 10, 20 people that bring you the most joy and love and support, I think is one of the best ways to combat all of those addictions and negative feelings and all of that, because then you're not in isolation. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, since we are on the Inspiration Contagion podcast, I'd love to hear what makes you an inspirational leader.
That's interesting. I don't know if I've really thought, like, I don't want anything about me to ever come across as like egotistical or say, here's why I'm inspirational. I mean, I would like to think that if I can share a strategy or a capability or a connection, then great. I mean, some people have often, because I don't even consider myself a great speaker, even though I've done a lot of speaking and I, run a pretty high level group, and, I think we do pretty awesome events. I never try to build anything around me. I've never wanted my organization, like Genius Network as an example, is one of the main things that I do. I don't want it to be known for me. I want it to be known for the people in the group. So if there's anything that I do that's inspiring, I just have, I've created a network of really smart people, and I share and curate their information. So I try to be an edifier of things and people that I like. I'm a multiplier. Dan Sullivan, who's a dear friend of mine, he's a founder of a company called Strategic Coach, and we do a podcast together. And he's, brilliant. He's coached many successful entrepreneurs, and he has this distinction between multiplier and simplifier. So whenever I hear something, be it a book or, I go out and edify it. So I think I just want to connect people with ideas, with concepts, with themselves, with any sort of strategies. And so a couple of days ago, I saw a movie on YouTube, and it's a short film that won an Oscar. And it's 20 minutes long, and it's called The Neighbor's Window. And I have sent this video out to, so anyone listening to this, I would literally just look it up and watch it. It will give you a great, I won't give away what the, watch it to the end. It's only 20 minutes, but I have sent it to so many smart people. Oh, I mean, Ariana Huffington said, she's like, I loved it. I sent it to Damon John. I sent it to Paul Stamets, who's one of the top mushroom experts in the world, Andrew Weil, who's one of the top integrative doctors in the world, all these high level people. And they've all been texting me back saying, oh my God, it was like, this movie's amazing. And so it's interesting when you have people that are looked upon as inspirational people, but you share a piece of inspiration with them. I heard something, early on in my 20s, which is, be nice to the people you meet on the way up. They're the same people you meet on the way down. And so the way that I determine who's a good friend in my inner circle versus who's just an acquaintance is, how are people that are more powerful treat people that are less powerful than them. And the people that I think are awesome in the world, they don't, it's not a positioning thing. They're just genuinely cool. And if they're going to be rude to a server, or they're going to, they're going to scream at their employees, and, I don't really like that sort of behavior. So what's inspiring and encouraging, hopefully, to me, is I try to walk the walk and talk the talk as best as I can. I mean, and just simply be an example. And I try to share a lot of stuff with people. I mean, I genuinely love to help other people. And I also like making money. So I don't poo-poo money either. People that say money isn't important, try living without it. I mean, money is really important. And people that say money can't buy happiness, I think that's kind of a stupid comment, because I buy happiness all the time. But like Jim Rohn said, though, you can't pay someone to do your push-ups for you. So you got to take all of that in context. But, people that say money can't buy happiness probably haven't given enough of it away, because, there are people that can't afford food. They can't afford medical care. And if you have the financial resources to facilitate that, be proud of your ability to make money. And as a matter of fact, it's not the money that's good or bad. It's how you make it. It's what you do with it. Money can buy experiences. Money can buy access. And so I encourage people to not feel bad about what it is they're doing. And at the same time, as like my friend Dan Sullivan says, we've done many podcasts about this. Money earned ethically is a byproduct of value creation. So if you can go out into the world and produce more than you consume, you deserve to make all the money and more that you want, and go for it. And so, yeah. And if I can't help anyone with any capabilities, if I can at least tell them a really inappropriate joke and make them laugh, hopefully that's encouraging and inspiring on some level.
Oh, I love that. Well, I love that you're connecting people, that you're sharing things that are lifting people up. I think that's inspirational within itself. I also love the topic of money. I think most people I've interviewed, when they define success, which is a question we'll get to later, they don't really talk about money. Like, the end goal is impact typically, or helping loved ones. And that comes with money. So while it may be a byproduct of success, I agree. Like, it's important to go after money, but typically you want to make sure you're being driven by something else so that you can use the money, because it's like more of an energetic thing of sharing that, buying that experience, getting that access so that you can spread the word and invite people to work with you at a deeper level. So I love that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Here, let me tell you something that I think share something with you that I think is a useful framework. And then I'd love to hear actually your definition of inspiration and leadership, because you've obviously talked to so many people about it. So I'd like to, in your current level of where you're at right now, I'd like to hear your current version of it. Not that you probably haven't shared it before, but I'd like to hear it, your current iteration of it. Dan Sullivan taught me this years ago, and we're talking, and he has a process called the opportunity filter, where if you look at your very best clients and your worst clients, and you give them a rating in 5 categories, up to -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the best score someone could ever get is a 25. out of these 5 categories, and the worst score is like a -5. And then you take those those two numbers, and then you divide them by 2, and then you come up with a baseline number of never take on a client that scores below this level. So the 5 areas these are 5 ways to get paid. So if anyone's taking notes or something, 5 ways you get paid in life, and these are in no particular order. I'll tell you what my criteria is, but these are different for everybody. The first way you get paid is you get money, you get rewarded. That's one way to get paid. And second way you get paid is people appreciate you. Third way you get paid is they utilize you. Fourth way you get paid is they refer you. And the fifth way you get paid is it enhances you. And I always used to beat myself up because I would find myself not focusing on things that could make me the most amount of money. Even though I've read over 1,000 books in my life, I've spent over $2 million on my own education. I've been to more seminars than probably anyone I know. I've led, literally hundreds of seminars, workshops, and stuff over the, since 1994 when I started my marketing company. I've interviewed over 900 people. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, and I would always find myself like, oh man, I'm just not disciplined. And why am I spending time with this person or on this thing when I can make so much more money over here? And I would read books on how much is your time worth per hour and all that sort of stuff. And I could never really make sense of why am I so undisciplined in some of these areas? Why do I not just go for the thing that's going to make me the most money? And then when I learned this, it made sense to me. So for me, the number one thing before I get involved in any person or anyone, to go back to your point about impact, is my criteria is, does it enhance me first? That's my number one thing that I look for. Second is, do people utilize me? That's why I deal with, players with money. I have most of what I do in the world, I give away for free, or I charge, $25,000 or $100,000 to be in one of my groups. And it's not for everyone. People have to be at a certain criteria, but I go after that sort of client from the revenue generating standpoint, because most of them have the ability to utilize what it is that I bring to them. The third is, do they appreciate me? Because, I want to be liked. I've enough low self-esteem and the need for validation that I want people to like me and appreciate me. The fourth is, do they refer me? And fifth is, does it make me money? So yes, I am a capitalist. I do want to make money for what it is that I do, but it's not the number one thing. And if all you're getting is money and it doesn't enhance you, people don't utilize you, they don't appreciate you, they don't refer you, I mean, you're simply engaged in prostitution and you don't know it, right? And so and everyone to a certain degree has been in a situation where they just had to get money. The challenge, though, is when the reason people hate what it is they do is because they're not scoring high on utilization, referrals, appreciation, enhancement. They're just not getting paid. So money's only one way to get paid. And if you're going to look at work and you're going to wake up and you're going to do stuff, to me, that's what impact is. And, it's very uninspiring to be doing work where you don't score on the different ways to get paid. So for me, I put everything through the L filter. Easy, lucrative, and fun would be high on all those 5 categories of getting paid. I'd feel aligned, I'd feel connected. And if I don't, because there is hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating. There are people that are hard, annoying. You can make a lot of money, but boy, you have to sell your soul for it, and it's painful. And so that's where integrity and engagement and character and value creation all come into place, because not all money is created equal. Not all people are, and so over the years, I've learned how to try to avoid narcissists and how to avoid situations that just don't feel right. And if people pay attention to your gut, you can kind of gauge most people.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times when I first got started where I took on a client and my gut was saying, and I couldn't really put my finger on why it didn't feel right. So it was hard to be like, oh, I'm sorry. And so I took on 1 or 2 of those clients, and worst decision ever. Like, they ended up being the most difficult clients, the most painful for the money that you're earning. So I completely agree. Listen to your gut. Absolutely. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. It ends up being a nightmare on both sides. And we all want just everybody to be happy with the experience that they're getting and for it to be a good partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Joe, what does inspiration mean to you?
There's part of me that if you think of inspiration, to feel excited, to feel drawn to to me, what is, I think, most inspiring is seeing people that have overcome massive adversity, and in spite of, the cards they've been dealt, they figure out how to tap into a level of resourcefulness within themselves and still persevere. And it's easy to get inspired by motivation, but motivation only goes so far. I have like a dear friend, BJ Fogg, who wrote, his newest book is called Tiny Habits. He's a professor at Stanford. I've actually spoken at his class before, and he's like a behavior design researcher and scientist. And one of his students took his Fogg behavioral model and he built Instagram out of it. And a lot of well-known authors have learned a lot from BJ's, like James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, and Nir Eyal, who wrote Hooked. I mean, a lot of books have been influenced by BJ Fogg, and he can describe all human behavior through his model, which is called MAP. M stands for motivation, A stands for ability, and P stands for prompts. And so, if you look at just motivating someone and being really inspiring, that's one thing. But I'm actually quite excited by people that have enormous skills and capabilities and are just really good at what it is they do because they have just put in the work and put in the time. So there's something to me about just the consistency of sticking with something, even though in the beginning it didn't work at all. Because if you have a successful marketing campaign or you hit a home run right out of the park, I mean, great. But people that have been through hell and have come out of it, I mean, that's what's encouraging and inspiring to me. Is that saying in 12-step groups is for religion is for people that are afraid of going to hell, spirituality is for people that have already been there. And so there's a lot to be said about just looking at people that, man, they had. I always think of he was my best friend, the late Sean Stevenson. He had a brittle bone condition. He died when he was 40 years old. I was with him in the hospital when he died, and he had in his last words to me and his wife that were literally standing over a stretcher before he had to be air vac'd, he's like, this is happening to me, not for me. Those are the last words I heard him say. And I've heard those words before. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say those things. Tony Robbins is a friend of mine, and he said that. But just hearing Sean, on the day he died, say that, and seeing that this guy had 200 broken bones before the age of 18. I mean, went through physical pain and living in a shell that I couldn't even fathom. He never walked a day in his life, and had to be driven around in a car seat, but became one of the greatest motivational speakers in the world, an incredible author. Just what human perseverance can do and what you can create no matter what. That to me is encouraging. Just people that I think like I have problems. I mean, man, you look out into the world and see some of the people of what they're dealing with and what they've overcome. I mean, to me, I find inspiration in, success stories.
Yeah. Serendipitously enough, Mindy, Sean's wife, just launched her new conference, and I just signed up for that. Sean, I got to see him at a couple conferences, and he was just incredible. I completely agree that other people's stories of facing adversity, it connects us because we're all human, and there's not really success without some kind of challenge, obstacle, or adversity. I've actually rarely seen that. And I find that also people that have some of these substantial challenges throughout life, that the summit and the success story is so much sweeter at the top because they had to face those obstacles. Those obstacles and challenges defined who they were and made them stronger and better for it. And so, yes, I think I love that Sean always says this is happening for me and not to me, because it's really a powerful shift in perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So would you mind defining how you define success for yourself and how you arrived at that?
Yeah, I have a friend that I do my I Love Marketing podcast with, Dean Jackson, and we did a podcast on this literally, I think the first year that we that we did, I Love Marketing, where basically he has this process called I Know I'm Being Successful When. And, success isn't arriving at a certain destination. Oh, well, you're successful. You're successful when there's certain characteristics that exist in your life, and it's always changing. Um, if I started smoking, like I used to freebase cocaine. When I was 18 years old at my worst state, I was a total drug addict, and I weighed 105 pounds at my worst state at 18 years old, 5'10" male. You can imagine how skinny that is, right? So I was lucky I didn't die. And if I started doing drugs again, whatever financial success, whatever people think of me today, I mean, that would be gone in 2 weeks, right? So life could be very fleeting. I mean, it could absolutely turn overnight, right, in an instant. And so being successful is when there are certain things that exist in life. And so for me, feeling like aligned, not having to put up with annoying people, saying yes or no to whatever I want to say yes or no to, from a financial standpoint, my I won't go through my list. I have a list of 20 things that I know I'm being successful when these things exist.
Well, you'll have to email those to me later because I'm really curious.
No, yeah, let me see what I'd be willing to share here. I actually I keep it in Evernote, and I'm sure there's a few because a lot of times I try to write these things in code, because
For anybody listening, we're hearing the cliff notes to success from Joe, and these are secrets. So I hope your listening ears are on.
I hope I can pull it up here without like wasting a bunch of time because you know, I have so many different things I've written about it so many times. It's a matter of, come on, where is it?
Well, while you're pulling it up, I love that you're saying that it's not one arrival. It's actually having specific characteristics or an essence of being along that journey, and that it's constantly changing, that it really requires, I imagine, some really strong self-awareness to make sure you're embodying those characteristics like integrity and trust and having a community that supports you and you support them and things of that nature.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, here it is. Okay, come on. Why is it not pulling up? So here, I'll share someone. So my passive income exceeds I know I'm being successful when my passive income exceeds my lifestyle needs, no draining or toxic people in my life, minimal grunt work and only when I choose, no aches and pains because my exercise, diet, sleep, and spiritual practice keep me fit. So that's code for not having addictive cravings. So the second one ties into that. No negative cravings that cause me to suffer and find myself trying to control. If anyone's ever been experienced addiction, either in themselves or in others, it's not a choice. I mean, no one says, hey, I think I want to be a heroin addict, or I want to be a sex addict, or a gambling addict, or a work addict, or an internet addict. I mean, it kind of takes over. And that's a really, difficult place to be. So the craving state in a negative way is what self-sabotage. And so when I can live in a place where I'm reacting to not reacting to life, but responding to life, my life works when I'm responding to life. When I'm reacting to life, it doesn't work. What you see in the world not working right now is a bunch of people reacting, be it under the form of looting or anger or whatever. There's ways to respond, and then there's ways to react. And I was in a real grief state in 2016. I'd had a breakup of a relationship that was really caused me a lot of grief. And I felt a deep pain that I had not felt in, a long time. And I have a yoga instructor named Giselle, which is kind of funny because she's still a dear friend of mine. And we do yoga every once in a while. And she came over and I had her do a private session with me. And she said this saying that I'd heard before, but I just heard it differently at the time she said it. She said, if you do yoga 3 times a week, it'll change your body. If you do it every day, it'll change your life. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if I do yoga every day. So I did yoga for 31 days straight. And then I took like a day off. And then over a 90-day period, I did like 82 or 83 sessions in either not a YouTube video for 10 minutes, but we're talking like an hour to 90 minutes every day for, almost 3 months. And it just worked out so much of this grief in my body. And it just shifted a little bit, my ability to respond to life versus react. It didn't, of course I react, I'm human, but I'll tell you, like when I'm in a responsive state, things work. So to me, success is being in that as close to a flow state as one can get themselves into. I'll keep going. Always laugh at myself in situations daily. I feel freedom and acceptance in my life and those I choose to associate with. From a money standpoint, I live like an artist with a $50,000 a month trust fund. So meaning I live like an artist, I do what I want, but I have money. I'm not a starving artist. I'm working on projects that excite me and allow me to do my best work. I never work on projects or with people that drain me, and I know what to say no to and yes to. I wear whatever I want at all times. I never schedule appointments, take phone calls, have meetings, or check emails unless I really want to. And I'm certainly still working on that one because I think email is the curse of my existence. And so, I'm not totally there on that one at all, but it's getting better. I encourage and inspire others through my personal and business activities. I spend my time working on my unique ability. I walk my walk and talk my talk. And I have a business that allows my current and devoted team to become wealthy as a result of their contributions in building and maintaining the organization. So for me, that's just some of my things on I know I'm being successful when. And so I never tell people, here's success that you should have, because who am I to tell someone what success is except for myself? And I think, lasting happiness. This is my buddy Dave Kekich. He has a Kekich Credos. He's a guy who's in his late 70s, paralyzed from the chest down. And he wrote these 100 credos after he lost the use of his legs. He was in a freak accident exercising where he became paralyzed. And he was in his mid-30s. He lived at a house in Huntington Beach, a beautiful girlfriend, convertible Mercedes. He used to tell me that he was jogging and exercising when jogging wasn't even considered cool back then, and literally had this accident, lost the use of his legs. Business partners stole his money. Girlfriend left him. Spent 2 years traveling around the world in a wheelchair trying to find a cure, can never do it. And he ended up writing these 100 credos called Kekich Credos. And they're some of the greatest wisdom that I've ever read in my entire life. I think we have them you can do a Google search, Dave Kekich, Kekich, in my name. You can probably find them on my website somewhere. But basically, one of them is lasting happiness does not come from consuming values, but by producing values, and producing more than you consume is the only justification for existence. And what I mean by that is if you read like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or, the 4-Hour Work Week, or whatever, of course, you'll learn a lot of stuff. There's good insight, but it's really not trying to become someone else. It's taking those things, integrating it into your life and producing your own value system, not trying to replicate or pretend you're somebody else. And I think that's what success is. Success is, take it all in, develop your own character, build your own business, build your own life, but do one that you feel really aligned with. And if someone doesn't like it, the best way to get approval is to not need it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad we took the time to go through that, because while that's your definition for success, I like the examples because it gives listeners an idea of creating their own list of what their success book means, right? So I know I'm successful when it would be a great exercise for listeners to write a list of, 5 to 10 things that embody success and post it somewhere that you see it every day, so that you are, being driven and you have that compass to direct you to say yes to those right things and say no to those wrong things. So I'm really glad we took the time for you to walk through that. So Joe, I want to jump into some of the movement leadership questions that I have, because you've created some pretty amazing movements with Network Genius, the Addicts group that you're leading. So can you tell us about one of the movements that you've built?
Yeah, well, Genius Network, I always say to people, even though I have a company called Genius Network, I have a group called Genius Network, I have a podcast called that. It actually started years ago when we used to do interviews on cassette tapes. Now they're podcasts, but I used to have, you're going to laugh at this one. My very first subscription-based monthly interviews that I started in 1995 was called the Joe Poller Superstar Audio Tape of the Month program. And it was $18.53 a month. People would subscribe. We'd mail them a cassette tape and then a transcription of the interview every month in the mail. There was no internet back then, right? I had my first website in 1996, but there was no e-commerce going on at that time. And basically, we would just send out, these interviews. And so when it comes to like a movement, I think any problem in the world can be solved with the right Genius Network. And so I don't just think of Genius Network as like my group, because I eventually changed that cassette tape series to the Genius Network interview series. And I thought, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to connect people with genius level ideas, people, and capabilities. Because Genius Network is it's a capability group. It is a way to take people that are industry transformers and connect them with other industry transformers or industry transforming ideas and have it be a sounding board. And so I'd say everyone wants to have a Genius Network. And I have a tool called My Genius Network. And this is one of the very first tools that I started with Genius Network. And I used to do it on the back of a napkin. That whole idea, if you can't write it on a napkin, it's probably not worth doing. So I'd have people draw a circle of themselves in the middle and then 8 circles out, going up, like you have these little spokes going out. And in the circles above, I'd say you want to draw a horizontal line going through the circle. And I want you to put the name of the person at the top and the capability underneath. So if you want to, develop a website, you may want a web developer, a coder, a graphic designer, a copywriter. If you wanted to be a better parent, who would you have on your Genius Network? If you want to develop a better spiritual practice, who would you have in your Genius Network? If you want to get in better physical shape, you maybe want a nutritionist or a yoga instructor or, a personal chef, a massage therapist, whatever. And so any problem in the world can be solved with the right Genius Network. And so in order to have a Genius Network, you have to do Genius Networking. It's an activity. It's not just how many followers do you have on social media, but it's literally who do you connect with? And so it's the be, do, have. In order for me to have a Genius Network, I have to be a Genius Networker, and I have to do Genius Networking. Now, that's just the way I do it. People can take whatever the hell I'm saying here, and they can interpret it in their own way. But to create a movement, like the very best thing that I think, like I interviewed him years ago. There's a book called The Spider and the Starfish, written by Rod Beckstrom and another guy named Ari. And the analogy they use is if you cut off the head of a spider, the spider dies. You can cut off the leg and it'll be disabled, but you cut off the head of the spider dies. But if you cut off the arm of the starfish, some species of starfish will not only grow another arm, but you can chop the starfish into little pieces and it will generate an entirely new starfish, because a starfish is a decentralized organism, whereas a spider is so if you cut off the head of a human, the human dies. If you cut off the arm or a leg, if they survive, they're going to be, they're going to be missing a limb, they're going to be disabled. So that what they did is they found 2 Al-Qaeda manifestos that were captured in terror raids, and they reverse engineered them on how to literally build a terror organization. And they came up with the analogy of a spider and the starfish. And they're like, when you attack a starfish, good or bad, it does. In many cases, it doesn't make it go away. In some cases, it makes it stronger. If you cut off the head of a terrorist, as an example, it may spread and metastasize like cancer. And they came up with different analogies. Like every day as we're sitting here, there are people that are working, thousands of people on Wikipedia pages for free. It's a starfish. AA, I've spent my whole life studying persuasion and influence because I'm in the marketing business. And one of the groups that I admire more than anything, which really is very loosely organized, is Alcoholics Anonymous. They built not through promotion. They say attraction, not promotion, but it's really desperation, because no one's attracted to going to a 12-step meeting. And I've been to many of them. So what it is, though, is Bill W. and Dr. Bob, who are the founders of AA, they simply created something that works. And if you want a movement, you actually have to have something that works, something that people can get behind, for good or bad. because there's movements that are incredibly beneficial and helpful to humanity, and there's many that are super destructive and filled with propaganda. And a lot of that's going on right now in the world. For some of the movements, there's, some good's going to come out of it. And a lot of these are pretending like they're trying to support, different people and different individuals when they're propaganda organizations. But if you look at the whole movement, there's elements of it that's, is it a spider or is it a starfish? So if you really want to create a movement, create a starfish, something that will literally grow, that doesn't require you to be the leader. And that's why when you see personality brands that the whole personality is built around them, that'll probably last in their lifetime. And, as soon as they're done with their narcissistic, endeavors of attention grabbing stuff, it'll dissipate and then someone else will come along. But the ones that are really sustainable, have substance to them, they really help people. And I think, in a lot of ways, I wish I could say that I know every different way to create a movement. I mean, there's more to learn from negative ones than there is from positive ones, but it's all how you what sort of momentum that you get behind. And the other thing too is, I have a friend named Ariel Garten, and she is the creator of Muse, the Muse headbands, if you've ever seen those. And I remember when I did an interview with her over my house a few years ago, and she's spoken at my Genius Network events and stuff. And she said to me, she goes, you can't kill a great idea. She goes, if you really have a good idea, even if people are opposed to it, it will, if you've really got something of substance, it may take time. People may not understand it, but if you just stick with it, if you really have something, it will come to fruition. And so I try to, like with me, my main goal is change the global conversation about how people view and treat addicts with compassion instead of judgment, and find the best forms of treatment that have efficacy and share those with the world. Now, the first part, change the global conversation, is kind of fluffy. How do we know we've done that? Well, but if we can find the forms of treatment that actually work, there's this whole notion of thought leaders, be a thought leader. And, some people are like, oh, I get introduced as a thought leader, and I'll make this joke. I'm like, look, any idiot can come up with a thought. You can either be innovative and sit down and come up with a few thoughts and be known for it, or you can steal those thoughts from other people, which a lot of quote unquote thought leaders do, or you can be a result leader. I like result leaders, people with the ability to actually produce a result. And when people are like, I want to change the world, it's like, that's sort of a cop out. Change one person, and then can you change 5 people, and can you change 10 people, and then 20, and then 50, and then 100? That's how a real movement, because it simply works. And so my whole thing is, when people are like, they've got these big grandiose ideas, and believe me, I can go to 50,000 foot level conversations all day long and forget about the logistics, forget about implementation, and lose myself in these, idealistic goals. At the end of the day, though, it's just simply got to produce a result. It's got to work. And if it does, then can you grow it? Then can you build it? And that's where the ability to, put the momentum. So, people are like, don't work hard, work smart. The real thing is work hard on smart things. Because you're going to, I wish everything was easy, lucrative, and fun right out of the gate. But I've told a lot of people, like, in order to get to ELF, sometimes it's a real pain in the ass in the very beginning. You don't just instantly, let me have an ELF business. I mean, any entrepreneur that's ever ran a company for any period of time, the treadmill of crap never stops. What changes is your tolerance to it, your resourcefulness, your ability to navigate it. The stuff that I have to deal with from 8 to 9 a.m. every Monday morning it would have killed me 20 years ago. And now it's just like, whatever, you build a multi-million-dollar organization, you deal with world leaders, all of this sort of stuff. And, what happens though is you build your capabilities. So, I think a movement is keep yourself moving, keep yourself healthy, and be I'll say this one other thing too. I've always loved this analogy. It's the $1 million racehorse. And this first happened years ago. I was interviewing a woman named Terry Lonia, and she had written a book called Working Solo. We were having this conversation in this interview that was on cassette tape back then. And we're talking about $1 million racehorse. And if you had a racehorse, and every time that horse ran a race, you made $1 million, how would you treat that horse. You wouldn't shove fast food down its throat. You wouldn't deprive it of sleep. You wouldn't be having the horse smoke cigarettes and drink booze. You'd have the best food, the best nutrition, the best trainers, the best track. You would give that horse recovery time, because when that horse is in good shape, that horse wins $1 million races. Well, you're the $1 million racehorse. And if you are beating yourself up, not giving yourself proper sleep, relaxation, rejuvenation, connection, you're not going to, it doesn't matter how, occasionally people will see some exhausted, worn out person that, because certainly the world advances on the backs of its neurotics. There's no question about that. However, most people that have sustainability, they were in a state that allowed them to get there. And that's why, because you can't fix the world with broken hands. And so if your hands are broken, make sure your hands are in good shape, because then you can, if you really want to create a movement. So I could say more, but I think I'm rambling about a bunch of stuff, but I wanted to give some, analogies and perspective on it.
No, that's really good. I was taking notes so that I had things to reference back to. That was really good stuff. I love the starfish versus the spider analogy. And I think that's something that people that want to create a movement really need to spend some time thinking and brainstorming on is how do you create those pillars of success for the movement that's creating that starfish movement that's bigger than yourself. So I think that was a really great analogy. And the example of AA is wonderful. And I also just wanted to just point out to people that are listening, because your goal is to have people view addicts in a different way. There are so many different forms of addiction. Like I struggled with codependency, and I did a Celebrate Recovery step study, which is modeled after AA for a couple years. And I think that we all are addicts of some sort, and we have different varying types of addiction. And it's so empowering to be in a community, in a safe space, and recognize that there are other people in the same room or online in the conversation that are struggling with the same thing, because it connects us, it makes us human, it makes us realize that we are going through these challenges together and not in isolation.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I love the $1 million horse example. When you get started, it's not an elf company when you first start. It is more of a job. It's more tedious. There's some effort. There's figuring things out. There's going through failure and obstacles. But it's worth it. But it is a marathon, not a sprint. And so you want to treat yourself like that $1 million horse. So I love that. That's a great analogy. I want to respect your time, Joe. We're running out of time. So let's jump into the lightning round questions. What is your favorite book?
Boy, there's so many, but The War of Art by my buddy Stephen Pressfield is a book that I refer to a lot. I tell people to go to. I think it's awesome. I just love it. A book I've been reading recently that is truly profound. I've read over 1,000 books. It's called Breathe by James Nestor. And even though it's about breathing, I have never heard another author talk about the things he talks about in this book. It's utterly profound. So The War of Art and Breathe, I could say more. It's so hard to narrow it down. I love, Michael Singer's Untethered Soul. And, I like my book, Life Gives to the Giver, which, people can read that online if they want. But there's so many good books. But War of Art, if you've never read it, fantastic.
Love it. If you have a list of your 1,000 books, I'd love to see it.
I do have some of my favorite books on my website, on joepolish.com. I actually list what are my most impactful books that I've read. But yeah, I'd be happy to send it to you.
Awesome. That's great. What networking or community group do you love the most?
Well, I built the one that I like the most, which is Genius Network. Outside of that, though, I'm a member of many different groups and many different organizations. I've been in strategic coach for over 23 years with Dan Sullivan and Bab Smith, and they're two of my best friends. They're also part of Genius Network too. So I'm the highest referring person in the world for strategic coach. I've referred over 380 people have joined that program because of me, and it's not even because of an affiliate thing. I just like it, and I tell people to join it because I'm a multiplier, and Dan and Babs have referred more people into Genius Network than probably anyone else in my clients. But I tried to create a school for entrepreneurs that pays them to attend, and my whole thing is I like groups where even though there's an upfront investment, it's never a cost. It's really an investment because it pays back. So I mean, I've curated a group of givers. I like things. There's a lot of narcissists in the personal development world. I mean, a lot. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, who wrote an incredible book called "Don't You Know Who I Am," has become a dear friend of mine, and I've done a deep dive on narcissism because we live in a very narcissistic, creating world right now. With all of the social media and everything, and the influencer. It's like, pay attention to me. And when you focus on getting attention versus giving attention, your whole focus is on, you'll be a happier person if you're able to give attention to things versus just spending all your time trying to get attention. The analogy is, if you play guitar, which I don't, and you really love playing guitar, or a physical practice or a spiritual practice, and you escape into it, but all of a sudden you're filming it so you can get followers online. That thing that you used to give attention to is now about getting attention, and you experience life in a much different way. So just food for thought.
I love that. I am not the biggest advocate of this group where this came from, but Giver's Gain comes to mind. And I think that there's like such a great feeling of giving and helping. So Giver's Gain versus narcissism and getting that attention is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the best piece of advice you would share with others today?
I said it earlier before, be nice to the people you meet on the way down. There's, on way down, that too. Be nice to the people you meet on the way up. They're the same people you meet on the way down. I would almost change the word nice to respectful, because, there's this Zig Ziglar line that's very famous, which is, you can get anything in life you want by helping enough other people get what they want. Well, the truth is, if you're a giver, you can help a lot of other people get what they want that won't do a damn thing for you. And as a matter of fact, they'll try to abuse you and take advantage of you and betray you and steal from you. I've had all of that happen. And so as I've gotten older, I've become more diligent in paying. It's not the red flags. My buddy Patrick Gentempo is the one that really gave me this distinction. He wrote a great book called "Your Brand is Your Stand." Your stand is your brand, that is. Well, I must be dyslexic today. Right? So your stand is your brand. And it's not the red flags, but it's the yellow flags. And so being more aware of it. So I mean, be respectful and nice to the people you meet on the way up, because you're going to have years where you're kicking ass. Things are coming to you, you're feeling good. And there's going to have other times we have loved ones that die, going through addiction struggles, pandemics, something happens with your children. And, you don't ever want to be one of those people that someone ever has a reason to say, you know what, that person took advantage. That person was an opportunist. It's one thing about you using people versus utilizing. I want people to utilize me. I don't want people to use me. I don't want to use anyone. I want to utilize them. And, I truly want it to be a win-win situation. And if someone has to lose in order for you to win, you have to really question it. Is that really a game you want to play? So, some games in life, the only way you win is you don't play. And you got to determine which of those games in life is worth playing, because some of them, no matter how you play them, you're never going to win.
Yeah, I love that. I like to also say to people, don't burn bridges, because you never know when you're going to need to use that bridge, and work with that person, not to use them, but utilize them and partner with them or collaborate with them. You never know, because life is constantly pivoting and changing. My last question for you is, what's the legacy you wish to leave behind?
Yeah, I don't know if the world's going to be better off after I'm gone, or not. Maybe it will be. Some people will be like, yeah, uh, I guess if there's anything that I hope to do is with the change the global conversation. It's going to take decades. But right now the criminal justice system is treating addicts, and you cannot punish pain out of people. And it needs to be a more compassionate sort of thing. So the work that I'm doing with Connection, I hope that I can create a body of work, which I have. We've done a lot of stuff and we've put it out there, and it's free, and most of it will be free forever. And I'm just hoping that I help speed up the time that it takes to stop this incredible, inhumane way. Even so much of what we see going on right now, I would actually say, is addiction. It's this constant obsession. And when people are disconnected, from themselves and for others, bad things happen. So I want to reduce human suffering to whatever degree that I can be an influence. And I hope that I can, be as congruent as humanly possible with my message and live and be the type of person that I would have, that would have made my mother proud, and that I can, encourage people. So when the time comes that I'm no longer here, I've left things better off than they were before I showed up. I have the sort of, this will sound weird, but the rental car philosophy of life, or like the renting a home. Some people will rent a car and they'll drive it over curbs and they'll leave crap all over the place and they'll beat it up and stuff, or they'll rent a house and they'll put holes in the drywall and stuff. And it's like, you know what? Leave something better off than it was before you showed up, including humans. There's a lot of human suffering in the world. And whenever you can add some sunshine to someone's life, or you can do something awesome, then do that. And, with what I'm doing with Genius Recovery, if anyone has any interest in the recovery stuff, Celebrate Recovery, 12-step programs. I mean, at Genius Recovery, it's an educational platform. It's all free. The only book that I've ever written on it is The Miracle Morning for Addiction Recovery. And, the beauty of, Genius Recovery is free meetings. Right now they're virtual. So there's links to every type of, meetings that are available, and lots of videos and podcasts. And I have an open letter for people struggling with addiction that explains my viewpoints on addiction. I've been interviewed, for US News and World Report. There's articles. Anyone can type in my name and addiction and find a ton of stuff. But if I can just help with that, that would make me happy.
Yeah, I'll be sure to include that in the show notes, the information on Genius Recovery. I think that's such an amazing, incredible tool you're sharing, because I know a lot of people are suffering with possibly new addictions or old addictions that are flaring up, because this is a crazy intense time with COVID and everything. So I really appreciate that you're offering that for free and a space online for people to work through that right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Joe, this is wonderful. I hope that you are able to change that national conversation or the global conversation around that. I think that would be amazing. Joe is also offering a free copy of his book, Life Gives to the Giver. So if you want a copy of that, that link will be in the show notes. And it's an easy one to remember. It's www.joesfreebook.com. So please download that, check that out. Joe, this has been such a pleasure. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we close today?
Well, I will just say that think of today as the last day of the way you used to be. And so if there's anything that you want to change, every passing moment is another chance to turn it all around. So no matter where your life is or whatever, we can get ourselves in the rut. But if we respond versus react, every human has the ability to, make an incredible impact. Even if they don't think so, we all have incredible power if we just tap into it. So I'm glad that you are helping people inspire. Oh, and I never heard your definition of inspiration. Can you share that real quick? Why don't we?
Sure. Yeah. Well, after speaking with people and reflecting on inspiration, for me, inspiration is this energy that we feel. And I believe that it requires a profound amount of self-awareness for it to be truly self-inspiring. You have to be in a state of flow and recognize what inspires you through other people's stories, but also what inspires you on your journey to success and defining success for yourself. And that requires having some boundaries around not just listening to everything people tell you and knowing the difference between what's their journey versus what's your journey and what really lights you up. So that's what I've come to so far, Joe.
No, that's awesome. That's really fantastic. So I appreciate you sharing that with me.
You're
I
welcome.
hope everyone takes what we had to say and goes, look, one of the best ways to be inspired is to go and inspire others and share things that lift you up. And that's more of what the world needs right now. And whenever you think your life, is not where you want it to be, just go out and help someone else. And it's amazing how much that will do for your mindset and for your being. And that's what makes the world go around. So I appreciate it. And great to spend the time with you, Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So for listeners, make sure you check out the show notes, watch the video, check out his book. And I'll also have his link for his website, Genius Recovery, and several other links and resources for you. I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. What is one thing you can do in this moment that will inspire someone? Without action, nothing changes. Be the change you wish to see in the world. If this show truly inspired you, we ask that you share it through your network. Help us spread the light and inspiration in the world. I look forward to seeing you here next week.